Shalom and good day all, this is Tehealing29 back again for some DC reviews, and in these DC reviews I'll be covering, of course, Superman Action Comics by Mark Waid, and also Chip Zdarsky on Batman, with one we're on issue 1074 and the other one is 154. I'll now get things ready and organized for the first one that I'll be covering in the review. So, first things first, does this cover in any way, shape, or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? Sure enough, it does, to which I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Now it's time to move. Before I move into the actual story, I'll only be covering the front story, not the back story, as I'm not really interested in that story, and I really wish DC would maybe put it in its own separate book, separate from Action Comics, even if it's sort of like an Action Comics anthology, which I think would sort of work with the characters that they're working with, which they could probably bring out bi-monthly with some of these stories that they're trying to bring in. It's just an idea, and I think they should probably use it or utilize it, and it would make a little bit more sense, because you might be able to put, say, maybe two story, considering how many parts there might be to the backstory, they might be able to just put it in an anthology type comic, to which it's probably got about maybe 3 or 4, maybe 20 to 30 plus page stories in it. And that would be enough to settle whoever's wanting to follow that story. So, time to get into the main part, and that is having a look at the beginning, middle, and the end, and also what's happening story-wise with the characters. So, as the story begins, we do catch up with Superman, and yes, he's in the Phantom Zone. Of course, he has to cover up his crest, so not to know, in regards to what happened with sort of like the king of the Phantom Zone. He's brought him to this particular place, and we're getting to see the past here, but I'm also wondering, with what we're seeing here, it might also be putting the characters in a bit of a dreamlike state of what they believe to have happened in relation to the Phantom Zone being created. So, whilst Superman is wherever he is for the Phantom Zone / Krypton, we do catch up with the characters of King Kong and Connor Kent, of where they are in an unknown location, with the Zorphon, intergalactic imposition, as this sort of like relays back to some of the things that they've been doing whilst Clark Kent has been in the Phantom Zone. These characters are working to protect Earth, and also some of the encounters that might happen outside of Earth, and I think this is actually really well executed in the story. Sometimes we don't get enough time with these characters, but I appreciate Mark Waid putting in whatever time he can with these characters. And last but not least, towards the end, to which we get to see one of the authorities coming to the Kal-El household, and wanting to, of course, address what some of the people that he's sort of like communicating with. So, in other words, they're sort of like conspiring against him, of what we see here, and he's trying to get the truth out of what's happening with the situation here. For the internal art, I give a 7.5 out of 10. Now it's time to move in relation to the area of the internal story. First things first, did we get any comic book references to any of the previous issues? No, we didn't. Next is the location. Of course, we get to see Krypton. We get to see things in relation to the Phantom Zone, and also a bit of an unknown region in space, to which we saw Connor Kent along with Keenan Kong, the new Superman. And in fact, it would be really nice to see another new Superman series come out. And I think it would probably work with the All-In. Maybe with some of the things, but not everything. Next, we have the cast of characters. Of course, Clark Kent, Superman, Mon-El, Connor Kent, Keenan Kong, Lara, Jor-El, Roseanne, who we learn is sort of like one of the leaders in the scientists in this particular region. And we had we also had the mention of Kara L. For the overall rating for this story, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Now it's time to move into Batman issue 154. So as we move into Batman 154, does this cover cover in any way connect to something that's happening inside of the story? In essence, it does. And I do actually quite like the format as they've of how they've executed the cover, to which I give a 7.5 out of 10. We get to see, of course, Edward Nygma, plus a list of other characters, including Ms. Nakano, and we've also learnt that Mayor Nakano has died. To which I give a 7.5 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the area of the internal art, as we have a look around the beginning, middle, and of course the end, and also what's happening story-wise with the characters. So as the story begins, we do catch up with Batman, who's also investigating the crime scene. He's there with Gordon, Bullock, and a couple of others. We don't really get to see Oracle in this, which is, I think, really could have been quite helpful in this case. But that's neither here or there. And along with this happening, we also see some other things that are happening behind the scenes. As we start to move towards the middle of the story, we learn that Bruce Wayne might have a stepbrother of sorts. Whether it's actually true or not, we'll probably find out in further issues. Hopefully it's not, and it's sort of like a just a play on Bruce Wayne's mental facilities, and that what we are hearing might not actually be true. And last but not least, we move towards the end, to which it's sort of implied that maybe Jim Gordon had an affair with Mayor Nakano's wife, but it doesn't quite make sense considering of how young she'd be compared to him. So maybe it's not about an affair, maybe it's about something else. So for the internal art, I give it a 7.5 out of 10, as I did actually quite enjoy the art in this story. Next is the area of the story itself, considering how far we are issue-wise. Did we get any comic book references to any of the previous issues? No, we didn't. Next is the area of time. Do we know what time some of these events are taking place? No, but it needs to be included in the story. The location, well, where Batman's always brooding, and that's in Gotham. Next is the cast of characters, to which we have Bruce Wayne Batman. We have Bullock, Mayor Nakano, who is now believed to be deceased during an event. We have Ms. Tilford, not Telford. We have the character of the Riddler. We have Gordon, Ms. Nakano, because her husband is now dead. There is someone by the name of Mr. Horgan who is brought up in the conversation. Of course, we have William Pureford, also brought up in the conversation. And we also have the return of Commander Starr. I must admit, another character that we didn't quite see in this was also Vandal Savage, and also what he's also doing behind the scenes in relation to some of these events. But for the overall story rating, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.